First things first, product selection. This is where everybody gets stuck because without a product selected or the niche that you want to actually operate in, you are stuck. You have no idea where to get started. And so what generally happens when we sit down and try to figure out, hey, what niche am I going to sell in? What product am I going to sell? Well, what generally happens is you pull the computer out, you open up Amazon, you open up Jungle Scout, and you sit there and you start to just get overloaded with so much information that you don't know where to start. This is the advice I would give to the younger version of myself. Back before I started on Amazon and before I had all the knowledge that I have today. Because if I wanted to fast track to where I am now, starting from not even having an idea for a product and knowing where I should actually begin, I know what that feels like because I've been there. When you sit down and you're trying to figure out, well, what the hell should I sell? If I just look on Amazon, it seems like there's already a product for everything. And then I get on Jungle Scout and I see all these great ideas, but I know that other people see the same ideas that I'm seeing. And so we sit down and we start to have a version of like writer's block, we can call it Amazon block, before we ever get started. And for all of you who do wholesale, this is really tough for you because you're used to going out and finding products that already have demand. And because you're used to having products that already have demand, now you're in this environment where you have to start from scratch with something and figure out, what am I going to sell? How am I going to market it? How am I going to get demand in the first place? And I don't even know where to start. And so many sellers go through this where they sit down and they start to think, what do I sell? What do I sell? What do I sell? And this process right here is where they get stuck. And they say, there's got to be an easier way. I guess I'll go back to arbitrage. I guess I'll go back to wholesale. No, that's not the way. Don't allow yourself to get stuck in the product selection phase. I know that it seems hard, and it's supposed to be hard. Let's remember that. If this was easy, then everyone would be successful at it. But you don't have to be the most creative person in the world to be successful at picking the right products to sell on Amazon. I'm not the most creative person in the world, but what I did was I found a group that had an issue or a problem, and I solved the problem for them. It's as simple as that. Don't think you have to be super innovative or come up with like a Shark Tank idea. That's not what this is all about. The idea here is to solve a problem, provide a solution for that, and then market the solution to the problem that you found. So the most important piece of advice that I can give you is don't overthink this process right here. So here's what most people do when it's time to select their product. They grab their computer, they hop onto Jungle Scout or Helium 10, and they start scrolling through and looking for products that already have great demand, that maybe don't have enough reviews, maybe there's opportunity in there. They're really just creating something that already exists, but maybe a more differentiated version of that. I'm not about that life. Are there plenty of people out there who have done that? Yes. But do you have staying power if you do that? No. That's not the way to go about this process. Then there's the other people who don't want to use Jungle Scout or Helium 10, and they want to solve a really, really big problem. So they sit down and think about, what problem should I solve? And this never-ending wheel of ideas and thoughts goes through their mind, but they end up overwhelming themselves with so much information and so many ideas that nothing ever gets done. This is literally the recipe for analysis paralysis. When you have so much information available and you're looking at data and looking at different ideas and hopping on Amazon to go and validate all of that, you're going to be overwhelmed and you're not going to get anything accomplished. So this is one of the reasons that I am very much against the idea of using Jungle Scout, Helium 10, Smart Scout, whatever tool it is that you want to use that you're used to from arbitrage or wholesale. I don't want you using that tool to find your niche. I don't want you using that tool to find the first products that you sell. That's a mistake. Instead of getting onto a platform to find products that are just fitting a demand, what I want you to do is think about solving a problem, and solving a problem for a specific avatar. Because that's what a CPG company would do. That's what a real business would do. And we get in this mindset where Amazon is just a side hustle. It's not a real business, so we have to act about it a different way. No, that's wrong. What we should do is treat it like a real business and focus on solving a problem for a customer. So let me give you 5 reasons why it's better to solve a problem than to go find a product on Jungle Scout, Helium 10, Smart Scout, whatever tool it is that you want to use. Number 1 is the customer-centric focus. When you use one of the tools that aggregates data for you to help you pick a product, what's actually happening is that you're picking a product just based on the numbers. You're not actually looking at a customer's pain points and solving a problem for them. When you solve a real-world problem, your product that solves the problem is going to resonate with people who have pain points that you can market after. That's why it's not enough to just go onto one of the platforms like Jungle Scout and just find a product that has demand and do one little thing different to it. Let's actually reverse engineer solving a problem for a customer, and that's going to breed loyalty and repeat purchases from that customer because you're speaking directly to them. Number 2 is market differentiation. Amazon has become just a copycat game. People start their private label brand and they act like they're differentiated, but in reality, they're just knocking off somebody else. There's nothing that's new. But when you solve a unique problem, now you stand out amongst the rest of the private label who are actually just white label sellers who have done one little thing different on a product. This is so important because everyone's looking at the same data. Everyone's learning from the same gurus on how to analyze the data on their research tool. Everyone's coming up with the same solutions and solving for the same issues with the reviews that the customers had inside those existing products. Which means that even though you think you're innovating, 3 months later, someone else has the exact same product that you have. Oh, and by the way, you're all using the same manufacturers because you're finding those manufacturers in the same program. So there's no way that you can have long-term staying power if you are differentiating by using the tools given to you by one of those platforms. So instead of doing what everybody else does, I want you to differentiate differently by actually solving a problem. Number 3 is brand longevity. Hopefully I spelled that right. Longevity is a hard word to spell. Look, these research tools, Helium 10, Jungle Scout, they're great for identifying trends in a market, but trends are always going to fade. And if you're looking for brand longevity and your goal is to have staying power, then you need to be doing things differently than the masses. When you solve a problem, you're setting the foundation for staying power and brand longevity. And that's what's most important. Look, this is the reality. A product that comes from problem solving has a much higher chance of becoming a brand that actually exists and lasts long term. But if all you're doing is looking at the latest trends and trying to find products based off what everyone else is seeing, you're gonna have a hard time getting brand longevity from that. Number 4 is higher margins. When you solve a problem for people, instead of just looking at the data, you're going to be able to command a higher margin for your product. When you solve a problem, you get to charge more. That's what I did in the very beginning with my brand. I didn't innovate that much. I took what already existed, found a much better way to package it for customers, and in return, I charged a higher margin for it. I like to call it the convenience tax. I made it more convenient for them. I made it easier for them. I charged more for the product, and they were happy to pay for it because I solved a significant problem for my customers. Brands that solve problems have pricing power. And when you have pricing power, you're no longer in the mix with all the bottom feeders who are only competing just on price. Now, are people going to knock off your good idea? You bet they are, but you have to continue to innovate. And as long as you continue to innovate, your brand's going to start resonating with customers as the one that's pushing the agenda forward, meaning that you can still charge the higher price for your original products, but you're innovating up to new products as well. The market is always chasing you instead of you copying the market. Last and definitely not least, you're going to have a lot less competition if you solve a problem than if you copy what you see on Jungle Scout or Helium 10. Look, Amazon is an extremely competitive marketplace, and it's only going to get worse in the future. But why make it more difficult on yourself by going into an area that has a ton of competition already, where there's people with 10,000 reviews and you're starting off at 3 reviews? Instead, what I would rather you do is go into an area that has less competition. And how do you do that? It's by solving a problem that most people aren't trying to solve. Look, at the end of the day, these research companies have made it very easy for people to find gaps in the market, but everyone's seeing the same gaps. So if you go for the gaps that are the low-hanging fruit, you're always going to have a ton of competition. Your brand is never going to have the opportunity to resonate with people as a brand that solves problems, because it's your brand and 10 other brands that all solve the same problem at the same time. So these are the reasons why you should focus on solving a problem that other people aren't thinking about and introducing your brand as the solution to that problem.